I think we're gonna be fine. We're up on the full hill, and we're about 30 feet up from the river. And historically speaking, the most this river has ever flooded is 10 feet, which is probably close to what it's getting at to now, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll be okay.
Final message tonight is to the people of Florida and all the impacted states. We've got your back. We've got your back. And Kamala and I will be there for as long as it takes to rescue, recover, and rebuild.
Now, at this point, it's too dangerous to evacuate safely, so you have to shelter in place and just hunker down. Hurricane Milton is currently in the process of making landfall in Sarasota County as a Category 3 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 120 miles per hour.
Conditions deteriorate here in Tampa. You can see the wind and the rain really starting to pick up, and we're expecting landfall later tonight just south here in Tampa. Hurricane Milton closing in on the west coast of Florida. Rain and wind already being felt. The storm's outer bands spawning several tornadoes throughout the state. Home security footage capturing this possible tornado tearing through a neighborhood in Fort Myers, leaving a trail of damage. The massive storm expected to bring a record-breaking storm surge of 8 to 12 feet for the Tampa Bay and Fort Myers areas. An even bigger storm surge of 10 to 15 feet is expected into Sarasota and south. Water beginning to cover streets in Sarasota.
Hurricane Milton is going to be a deadly and catastrophic storm. It will bring massive storm surge, high winds, and severe flooding.
Resources assembled to respond. Utility crews on standby, anticipating widespread power outages. President Biden and Vice President Harris both briefed on the situation this afternoon.
But I urge everyone in Hurricane Milton's path to follow all safety instructions as we head to the next 24 hours. It's literally a matter of life and death.
Millions warned to evacuate, and many listened. Some packing what they could, going to shelters.
Everybody's worried about the same thing, do you have a home to come back to or, damage?
The Sunshine Skyway Bridge over Tampa Bay closed. People fortified their homes.
Buttoned up the best we could and we got out of there.
One homeowner literally tying down his home using heavy-duty straps. FEMA says more than 1,000 responders are ready with food and water, as well as search and rescue teams.
Moving on, the remnants of Hurricane Kirk swept into Western Europe, tearing up trees in Portugal and Spain before dumping heavy rains on France that left at least one person dead. A storm as well in the Mediterranean off the port city in southern France overturned 3 boats, killing 1 amateur sailor and putting another in the hospital in critical condition. Some 64,000 people in south of France were also left without power. Network supplier Enedis informed that while several departments reported roads cut off by the floodwaters as well, following a crisis response meeting in Paris, Energy and Ecological Transition Minister said that the government is mobilizing all state services and urged citizens to be careful.
Et je veux appeler chacun à la prudence.
All the services are mobilized, and I want to call on everyone to be cautious and to respect the safety instructions. These episodes will be repeated. We are at a time when climate change is having a real impact on our daily lives. We have the means to deal with it, but that means developing a culture of risk management and responsiveness.
De gestion du risque, de réactivité.
Authorities put Seine-et-Marne department near Paris on red alert for flooding as the rain swelled the Grand Morin River, which is a tributary of the Seine and runs through the French capital. Another 29 of the country's departments were placed on orange alert with heavy rains and high winds expected. There were 35,000 households that lost electricity in the worst hit departments of Pyrénées-Atlantiques, with a clutch of other departments in the southwest and central east of the country also affected. Weather forecasters had predicted the storm would dump a month's worth of rain on a swathe of the country, including Paris. Portugal's Civil Protection Authority, meanwhile, reported more than 1,300 incidents overnight, Tuesday to Wednesday, 3/4 of which involved fallen trees in the north of the country. Porto, the main northern city, was hit hardest with 400 trees uprooted. Cars were also damaged and rail services interrupted near Barcelos. Also in the north, the storm cut power to more than 300,000 households. Weather and civil protection officials said, having predicted winds of up to 120 kilometers per hour and heavy rain, put the coast on a yellow alert as waves reached up to 23 feet high. Spanish weather officials issued an orange alert for the north and northwest of the country, warning of winds of up to 140 kilometers per hour in the Asturias region. Galicia and the northwest reported some roads blocked by mudslides and fallen trees in urban areas. Now, interestingly, a number of curious and courageous tourists have regrouped in Portugal's Nazaré to see Storm Kirk arrive on the European continent.
Yeah, I'm here to see the waves, man, the big waves. Yeah, I've been watching the storm that's come across from the Gulf of Mexico, and it's just travelled all the way across the Atlantic. Today's the day that it's hitting. Booked my flights yesterday and arrived last night. Fingers crossed there might be some surfers whilst I'm here, but I'm not not holding any hopes for it, to be honest. Yeah. Big waves. That's why I'm here.
Southeast Queensland is recovering from a wild weather thrashing yesterday. Storms brought a downpour so intense it brought down the roof of a martial arts centre north of Brisbane. Students were inside at the time and were forced to run for safety. Live to Sunrise correspondent Georgia Costi, who's in Murrayfield this morning. Georgia, it was a brutal storm that many not prepared for.
Yeah, absolutely, Nat, particularly north of Brisbane where we are this morning. As you just saw in that security video, young martial artists and their parents were sent sprinting for cover as the roof collapsed and rain came pouring in. But that was actually a scene we saw right across the region at a Woolworths just down the road, a very similar sight. Hail and rain came smashing through the roof there as people were just trying to do their groceries. There was actually around 90 calls for help to the SES and most of those were in this Moreton Bay region. But because it is quite an unusual sight, some people did make the most of the hail. We saw people playing in it like it was snow, but it wasn't all fun and games. A lot of people in this region say that they did not feel prepared for this storm, and that's because the emergency alert system essentially failed. People didn't actually receive a text to say this storm was coming until about 5 hours after it initially started. The Moreton Bay Council does say that this was a tech issue as the result of a third party, and they are working to fix that. Now, the good news, however, is that it appears we have seen the worst of all of this. Throughout southeast Queensland today, we are going to see some showers and possibly storms, but the trough is making its way off the coast, so things should ease soon.
OK, thank you, Georgia.
Tonight, with concerning revelations of a revolt in the ranks of New South Wales Police. 9 News understands hundreds of officers from Sydney's southwest are at breaking point and refusing to carry out certain duties. They say staff shortages are compromising the safety of our state and are demanding action from the Commissioner.
The thin blue line is getting even thinner. There are fewer joining the force and many more walking away.
There are already a significant amount of officers down at the moment, over 2,500 officers.
And now officers from 7 Sydney police stations have had enough, hundreds of them taking a stand by refusing certain duties.
Once upon a time we were the 24/7 problem solver, and we're not anymore.
Cops from Auburn, Bankstown, Burwood, Campbelltown, Camden, Cumberland and Fairfield have said no to a long list of non-critical jobs. They include religious operations like the pro-Palestinian rallies, bail compliance checks with the exception of high-risk DV offenders, stationary RBTs, prisoner transfers, security for transporting mental health patients between hospitals, truancy checks for schools, parking and animal complaints, like a recent call to capture a blue-tongue lizard in a shopping centre. The statewide staffing shortage so dire that 9 News has learned an officer from Penrith was forced to work on a day off to cover last weekend's CBD protest. The angst amongst rank and file made clear in a leaked document from a recent union meeting in Camden. We are not mental health professionals, paramedics, teachers or social workers. The approach is unsustainable, paired with excessive scrutiny and unrealistic expectations imposed by the Commissioner's executive team. Officers are pushed to breaking point. The vision for a safer New South Wales is compromised.
At the end of the day, the Commissioner and her executive team need to make these changes.
Tiffany Genders, 9 News.
Tiffany Genders joins me now in the studio. So, Tiff, could more stations follow suit?
Well, Georgie, it is gathering steam with a letter from the union going out to the 16,000 members of the force this afternoon. On top of the 7 stations already involved, it looks like Campsie, Liverpool, Cessnock and Maitland will also join the revolt. Now, this is one step short of industrial action, but a bold statement to the Commissioner that things need to change. Karen Webb agrees, telling 9 News she's already working to reduce demand on the front line pipeline, making sure jobs are appropriately triaged and looking at whether other agencies should step up. And Georgie, the state's top cop has assured us that the public is not at risk with all this unrest.
OK, Tiffany Genders, thank you.
Police have fired a volley of bullets to shoot dead 3 dogs as they mauled a mother in a Dandenong backyard. The victim was rushed to hospital in a critical condition.
3 pet dogs lay dead in the backyard of a family home in Dandenong, shot by police after a vicious and relentless attack on their owner. 19 shots fired.
She was screaming, the dogs are killing me, I'm dying. Then after that, the other girl also calling to the police.
Residents at the house told 7 News when the victim, a mother in her 20s, walked out the back door this morning, one of the 5 dogs at the house attacked. Then 2 others joined in. They say 2 bulldogs and a pit bull who have lived with her for years mauled her.
I feel sorry for that girl. She got hurt very bad.
Others at the house couldn't stop the attack. Police tried capsicum spray without success, then pulled their firearms.
You're not going to die, they won't let you. They won't let you die, Jordan, I promise you.
The victim was rushed to hospital in a critical condition. As officers investigated, they arrested a man at the Ross Street house. Why are you being arrested?
I'm not, mate.
Why are they detaining you?
They're not.
Why are you getting in the back of a divvy van? Police later saying it was over an outstanding warrant. A neighbour told 7 News one of the dogs attacked her mother and her dog just 3 months ago, and that is now in court. She described the pets as aggressive and erratic.
They attack so many times here also on the street.
Paul Dowsley, 7
Beijing
News.
has threatened more retaliatory taxes on European goods amidst the escalating trade war between the European Union and China. The tit-for-tat trade tariffs will hurt Germany and Slovakia, which are the most exposed in Europe to any tariffs from China. Beijing is now considering an increase of taxes on the European large engine vehicles and dairy products. And this comes after the ministry stated that the importers of EU brandy will be required to pay a deposit of up to 39% from the 11th of October. On the heels of that news, the stock prices of the European car and brandy companies fell, particularly those with high exposure to China. The BMW shares fell more than 3%, while Mercedes-Benz Group dropped about 2%. The French distiller Rémy Cointreau sank by as much as 9.3%. Now, Hennessy Cognac owner LVMH Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton fell 6.8%, while Pernod Ricard dropped by about 4.6%. The cognac lobby group BNIC has said that France cannot abandon the United States and leave the US alone to face Chinese retaliation. That does not concern us. The BNIC has added that the impact of these taxes will be catastrophic for their industries in their regions. Now, Beijing's move follows last week's decision by the EU to levy 5-year tariffs of up to 45% on Chinese EVs. The two sides are still in talks, and Beijing could be trying to pressurize Brussels into finding a solution other than tariffs by making these statements. According to the European Commission, the EU will challenge the Chinese measures on brandy at the World Trade Organization. Now, Olaf Gill, a spokesperson for the European Commission, said, and I quote him here, "We believe that these measures are unfounded, and we are determined to defend the EU industry against abuse of trade defense instruments." The EU's economy chief, Paolo Gentiloni, said that he wasn't worried about the risk of tit-for-tat tariff escalation. He said, and I quote him here, "We had serious investigations concerning the risk of overproduction in some sectors. Now, we took appropriate and very proportional decisions, and I don't think there is any reason to react to these proportionate decisions with retaliation."
And
Brazil's Supreme Court has unbanned the social media platform X. It will bring the site, formerly known as Twitter, back online in one of its biggest markets. An estimated 20 to 40 million people use X in Brazil. Owner Elon Musk had failed to comply with the court's orders to block certain accounts from that platform. That prompted the ban. In the end, Musk followed the court's orders.
I believe she's worse than him. And we can't allow it to happen. Now, I had this done because, you know, our military is great. I knocked out ISIS. I knocked out ISIS. They said it would take 4 to 5 years. I did it in about a month, right? And we knocked them out. General Raisin Cane, this is a tough guy. Our military is great. And then I go on woke. You could put them in a woke room and scream at them for 2.5 years. They'd walk out and they'd say, let me at them. You know, these are not woke people. But I had this little clip, and I thought you'd find it very interesting. It's the military of the past, let's call it the Trump military, compared to the very woke military that we have now. I think you'll get a kick out of it.
You little scumbag! I got your name! I got your ass! You will not laugh! You will not cry! You will learn by the numbers!
Happy Pride. Happy Pride Month, and actually, let's declare it a summer of pride.
So you're a killer? Sir, yes, sir! Let me see your war face! Sir, you got a war face? Ah! That's a war face! Now let me see your war face! Ah! Bullshit! You didn't convince me! Let me see your real war face! Ah!
I hear it and I know I know you wanna take.
You will be a weapon. You will be a minister of death, praying for war. But until that day, you are pukes. You are the lowest form of life on earth. You are not even human fucking beings. You are nothing but unorganized, grabastic pieces of amphibian shit.
How to abracadabra, these bitches know I got answers the way I.
It looks to me like the best part of you ran down the crack of your mama's ass and ended up as a brown stain on the mattress. I love working for Uncle Sam. I love working for Uncle Sam. Let me know just who I am. Let me know just who I am. 1, 2, 3, 4, United States Marine Corps. 1, 2, 3, 4, United States Marine Corps.
So, it's a little exaggeration. Probably really not that much, actually. But what's happening to our country is...
All right, okay.
Képviselők, hölgyeim és uraim!
Honorable members of the European Parliament.
Azért jöttem, hogy ébresztőt fújjak.
I've come here
Draghi és Macron elnök úr példáját követem.
This is not the Eurovision, huh? All right. All right. Anlatılacak gibi değil. Bizim evin aşağısındaki sokağı bombaladılar. O saatten beri ben halas artık Beyrut'ta kalmak istemiyorum dedim. O saatten beri bende bitti Beyrut. Türkiye'ye gideceğiz. Orada nasıl Avrupa'yı tesir ederse, nasıl yürürse artık bakacağız ne olacağını. Şimdi hiçbir şey düşünerek yapmadık. Korkuyla kaçtık yani. Bir tek hayatımızı kurtaralım, daha sonra gerisi gelir dedik.
Yes, we are feeling more safe. We're going now with the ship to Turkey, to Mersin. I hope this war will end soon, because we left our family there. I left my husband there. So hope to come back soon.
Amid the raging war between Russia and Ukraine, the Russian Defense Ministry recently test-fired its anti-aircraft missiles in the Barents Sea. Take a look at these visuals.
There is a thunder of dragons flying over Ukraine's battlefields. Or brood of dragons. Flight of dragons? That also works. Whatever term you want to use, groups of these modern iterations of the mythical beasts are out in full force. Video of these thermite-dropping drones, nicknamed Dragon's Breath, started surfacing online in September. As is often the case with mythical beasts, though, reports of their existence did predate reports of their first confirmed sightings. Since September, there's been a deluge of documented dragon dealings. Initially, Ukraine used the drones to burn out tree lines and trenches where Russian soldiers were taking up positions. There's not a lot of defense against liquid fire raining from above. This video shows Russian rounds shooting past the drones as the soldiers below try desperately to dispatch the devices before they reach their targets. The breath in Dragon's Breath is thermite, a mixture of metal powder and rust that, when ignited, burns at around 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit, twice as hot as magma, and enough to burn through almost anything it touches, including armor. This is video of a Dragon's Breath used against a Russian tank that had just run over a mine. After a quick thermite shower, the Russian tank is destroyed. Russian military bloggers, which continue to be more reliable than the Kremlin in terms of battlefield reports, are saying Russian troops on the ground are getting very little guidance about how to deal with the new Ukrainian weapon. Most of the feedback, reportedly, involves soldiers just digging deeper trenches and having plenty of sand and water on hand to put out the fires. About the only defense against burning thermite is putting a decent layer of fireproof brick or concrete between yourself and the thermite. That might be what a group of Russians tried doing here when they got inside this concrete enclosed position known as a pillbox. But dragons can still fly low, and Ukraine's drone pilots have a lot of experience. So once the drone dropped its thermite payload inside the bunker, the concrete walls essentially created an oven inside, cooking off whatever ammo and equipment was within. As with other drone innovations pioneered in Ukraine, Russia is also trying to field its own versions of Dragon's Breath. This is video of one unit trying to develop the concept for the Kremlin, and while the drone does fly over the trees and puts out a shower of sparks, it doesn't have the same sort of effect on target Ukraine's dragons do. At least not yet. For Straight Arrow News, I'm Ryan Robertson, and we've been covering...
Today on Forbes, this U.S. company is cashing in on Ukraine's war with killer drones that fit in a backpack. On a hot August morning in the foothills of the Santa Susana Mountains north of Los Angeles, Wahid Nawabi, the CEO of drone maker AeroVironment, is bouncing down a dirt road in a Chevy Traverse. Somewhere in the skies overhead, one of his company's gull-winged Puma electric surveillance planes is hunting Nawabi and a Forbes reporter riding with him, and it's doing so quietly and autonomously. The trim, affable Nawabi shares the screen of a tablet computer that shows an aerial view of the grassy canyon they're driving through, relayed from the Puma. 1,300 of these very small planes have been supplied to Ukraine for the price tag of $318 million. It uses computer vision to navigate, comparing landmarks to internal maps as it zeroes in on a target it can autonomously seek, a tank, rocket launcher, or in this case, a white SUV. They are capabilities AeroVironment deployed in Ukraine last year to overcome Russian jamming of GPS signals and communications links. Nawabi, pointing to the vehicle they're riding in, which now appears on the tablet display, outlined in a white box, says, quote, "Look, it found us." In the Russo-Ukrainian war, what might come next is a pinpoint strike from something else. The deadly Switchblade, a weapon central to Nawabi's ambitions to make AeroVironment a multi-billion-dollar company in the next 3 to 5 years, up from $717 million in revenue in its fiscal 2024. Switchblade is a loitering munition, an expensive type of one-way kamikaze drone designed to circle the battlefield, awaiting a good opportunity to obliterate its target. Both the Russians and Ukrainians are using them in a war where dense networks of anti-aircraft systems have pushed fighter jets and bombers to the margins. Starting in 2022, the U.S. supplied Ukraine with 700 Switchblade 300s, a $50,000 missile small enough to be carried in a soldier's rucksack and launched with minimal effort. It was quietly used by U.S. Special Forces in Iraq and Afghanistan in the past decade to take down high-value insurgents at a distance of as much as 6 miles. More recently, Ukraine has been hunting valuable Russian air defense batteries with a newer, larger version, the Switchblade 600, a $200,000 weapon with a 25-mile range. Ukraine has received hundreds, with another 600 promised in a recent U.S. aid package. The Ukraine war has been a buzzing laboratory for unmanned aircraft, where makers test and improve their designs. AeroVironment got off to a rough start against Russian electronic warfare, which reportedly has hampered many sophisticated Western drones, but the company is now looking like one of the winners. Nawabi says modifications to overcome jamming and better training have pushed Switchblade's effectiveness rate north of 80%. Last month, the Army handed AeroVironment a contract worth up to $990 million, the company's largest ever, to cover Switchblade purchases through 2029. And the company is in the running for contracts from other branches of the military and foreign allies as they accelerate their adoption of drones based on their deadly effectiveness in Ukraine. Plenty of companies are chasing the opportunity. A study last year by the Vertical Flight Society counted 123 entities in 32 countries that were producing one-way attack drones. They include the Israeli pioneers of loitering munitions, like Elbit Systems, and buzzy defense tech startups like Anduril, which has supplied a larger, longer-range winged drone, the Altius 600, to Ukraine in undisclosed numbers. Anduril recently raised $1.5 billion and is plowing some of that into building a giant 1.5 million square foot factory called Arsenal One. But AeroVironment, which has quietly been the Defense Department's main supplier of small drones for the past 2 decades, may have the relationships, technology, and industrial experience to better satisfy the U.S. military's sudden desire for unmanned systems en masse.